sound that changed everything wasn't a scream or an insult. It was a dull, hollow thud. I was standing in the kitchen, staring at the steam rising from my untouched cup of tea, when I heard it land outside. Something heavy, something personal. My heart sank before my feet even started moving. When I opened the back door, I saw it. My late wife Margaret's old brown suitcase, scuffed at the corners, leather cracked with age, lying in the middle of the yard like discarded garbage. And standing beside it was my son's wife, Karen, arms crossed, lips curled in disgust. "That old trash needed to go," she said sharply. "It was cluttering up my house." In that moment, something inside me broke, and something else was quietly, deliberately born. That suitcase wasn't trash. It held my life. Margaret and I bought it 42 years ago, right before our first trip together. Inside were photographs, handwritten letters, a pressed flower from our anniversary picnic, and the scarf she wore on her last birthday. After cancer took her, that suitcase was all I had left that still smelled faintly of lavender and home. Karen knew that. She just didn't care. I had moved in with my son Daniel and Karen 6 months earlier, after a bad fall left me needing help. Daniel insisted, "Just until you're steady again, Dad." At first, Karen smiled too much and spoke too sweetly, but it didn't take long for the mask to slip. My chair was in the way. My meals were too traditional. My memories were depressing. And my wife, God rest her soul, was ancient history. Daniel worked long hours. Karen ran the house like a kingdom where compassion was optional and respect was earned only by those she admired. Which didn't include me. I looked at the suitcase in the yard, damp from the grass, the zipper half open. "Pick it up," I said quietly. Karen laughed. "Or what, you'll cry." I bent down, lifted it myself, and carried it inside without another word. Not because I was weak, but because I was planning. You see, people like Karen mistake silence for surrender. They forget that old men have lived long enough to understand patience. That night I sat on my bed and opened the suitcase carefully. Everything was still there. The letters, the photos, Margaret's handwriting, looping and warm. "I won't let them take you from me," I whispered. And that's when the lesson began. Karen prized one thing above all else: image. Perfect home, perfect marriage, perfect social circle. She hosted monthly garden parties, carefully curated for her friends, neighbors, co-workers, and church ladies who praised her hospitality and organization. So I made a few phone calls. Old ones. Friends of Margaret's, family members Karen barely tolerated, even Daniel's godmother, who Karen once dismissed as old-fashioned. I invited them all. For the same weekend as Karen's next garden party. When Karen found out, she exploded. "You did what?" she snapped. "I invited guests," I said calmly. "Isn't that what we do in this house?" "These aren't my people." "They were my wife," I replied, "and mine." Daniel tried to intervene. "Karen, maybe we can't." "No," she hissed. "This is embarrassing." I smiled gently. "You taught me something important when you threw that suitcase away." "Vote." "Yes," I said, "that memories only matter if people see them." The day arrived. The yard was full, chairs, tea tables, laughter. But instead of Karen's usual pristine setup, I had arranged something else. On one long table, I placed framed photographs of Margaret and me through the years: wedding day, new baby, family holidays, notes she wrote, stories typed neatly and laminated. At the center of the table sat the suitcase. Cleaned, polished, honored. Guests gathered around it, reading, smiling, wiping tears. "Margaret was extraordinary," someone said. "I remember her kindness," said another. Karen stood frozen at the edge of the crowd, face pale. One woman turned to her. "You must be so proud to have married into such a loving family." Karen forced a smile. I stepped forward. Margaret believed a home was built on respect, I said, my voice steady. She believed that elders were treasures, not trash. The silence was heavy. I looked directly at Karen. And she believed that anyone who throws love away eventually stands alone. Karen's friends exchanged glances. Whispers started. Daniel's godmother placed a hand on my arm. Oliver, this is beautiful. Karen fled inside. That night, Daniel sat across from me, eyes full of conflict. She crossed a line, he said quietly. Yes, I replied, and now she knows it. Karen didn't speak to me for days. But she never touched the suitcase again. 2 weeks later, Daniel came home early. We need to talk, he said. Karen's voice rose from the living room. You're choosing him over me. No, Daniel said firmly, I'm choosing decency. That night, Karen packed her own bags. She didn't throw them into the yard. I moved back into my old home soon after, stronger now, body and spirit. The suitcase sits at the foot of my bed. Sometimes I open it. Sometimes I just look at it. And sometimes, when the house is quiet, I imagine Margaret smiling. Not because I won, but because I remembered who I was. Respect isn't demanded. It's modeled. And lessons, real ones, don't need shouting. They just need truth, patience, and the courage to stand when someone calls love trash.